Welcome, Children of the Night, back to the Infernal Archive. On this episode, we are watching a 2014 film called Starry Eyes, and I'm going to read the little Wikipedia blurb for you as I always do. Starry Eyes is a 2014 American horror film directed and written by Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer. The film had its world premiere on March 8th, 2014 at South by Southwest and features Alexandra Esso as a hopeful young starlet who finds that fame's price is not always easily paid. Funding for the movie was partially raised through a successful Kickstarter campaign.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yes, already super interested in this film. We're independent filmmakers with aspirations to do feature films in the near future. That not only was this movie funded via Kickstarter partially, but it was also shot entirely in 18 days, which sounds like that sounds like a good schedule to me, baby. Don't fucking, you're in, you're out, less than a month. Like, that's what I'm talking about. So, desperately hope this film is good. That would
2.5 weeks.
Yeah,
that's wow.
That's a brisk schedule. So yeah, I hope it's good because that could be inspirational. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're gonna watch the movie and then we'll give you our thoughts when we're back. Thank you.
I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know and they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
And welcome back, Children of the Night. We just finished watching Starry Eyes from 2014, and I have mixed feelings about this movie. I'm curious to hear about what you thought.
I think if I'm looking at this, we'll start individually as if we're not comparing it to the rest of the ones we watched, just as individually. I think the most impressive thing, somewhat similar to Thesis, but I think this is better than Thesis. But I think the context of like it being a very low budget movie made for, we found out, $50,000.
Yeah.
And in 18 days.
Yep.
I think that context makes it a lot more impressive and interesting that they were able to achieve what they were, given the budget and stuff and the other constraints. I think the scariest part of this movie was the stuff that happens before any of the spooky shit happens, and it's all the commentary, the weird fucking parties, and the like terrible film industry shit. I found that to be like really cringeworthy and almost harder to watch than the stuff that was supposed to be harder to watch.
I see.
But no, overall, I think I would say I enjoyed this movie mostly. Definitely not horror. Well, it's horror-ish, I guess. Not scary, I guess, is more.
Yeah, not scary.
It's horror, not scary. Yeah.
This movie was giving me some hardcore whiplash. There were elements of the movie that I thought, it was so weird because it would go from doing some stuff I thought like exceedingly well, like professional grade well, and then it would delve into certain aspects where I'm like, this feels exceedingly amateurish, and I don't know, I'm just pulling this out of my ass, but there's two filmmakers, and I almost feel like maybe one of them was really not talented and maybe shouldn't be in this industry, and then there was one guy who was very talented and had a lot of chutzpah.
Pinky, are you pondering what I'm pondering?
I think so, Brain, but then my name would be Thummy.
In a perfect world, your name would be Dummy.
Because like there were scenes that were shot and edited and performed in such a way that I was like, this feels high caliber, like this could be in a higher budget film. And then there were other scenes where I'm like, this is barely student film level quality. And then there were certain aspects overall to the film that I felt that way. Like the performances I felt overall were just like not that great, which was kind of sad because the script itself, for the most part, I thought was, especially the beginning, I'll say like the beginning third of the film, and then there's like some stuff that's not quite as good, and then I think later on it brings it back. But like the first third of the film anyways, I thought the script was extremely tight. Like we were going scene to scene, everything felt super relevant, and it felt like we were with this girl on her journey, and I really felt like the setup was really great. But then the performances wouldn't necessarily match the quality of the writing.
Especially that producer guy.
Yeah, he
felt
was
very like
so cartoony.
Cartoony in a way that was, it didn't feel intentional. It felt like a bad performance, not an intentionally cartoony character.
Because there's the other two sort of villains. There's like the producer lady, and then there's the casting director guy who we only see at the beginning of the film. But they're also cartoony, but it felt much more. It felt more believable. I don't know, something about the way it felt creepy, and it felt like if the guy that you're talking about, the producer, felt like he's got a good look, and so they cast him because he had a good look. But then the performance felt like just derived from some other performance that was better, and it just felt like he was. I don't know. It felt student film. That felt very student film to me. It's like you're casting not based on the
ability,
what he's bringing to the role. You're just casting him because he looks.
He's got the right look, so throw him in there.
And I think that just that aspect is indicative of a lot about this film. Like, I've never seen something like sway from amateurish to because there were scenes where I was like, this feels grade A, like good. And there was even like subtle stuff that I was really impressed by. I kind of wish they would have done more of this, but there were two shots that come to mind. There's one shot where our lead actress, because the whole premise of the film, just to give a really quick rundown, is like it's about this aspiring actress in LA. She wants to make it to the big time. She gets this audition for like a production company that we know was big, but they're not quite as big, but like still prestigious. And then she does these auditions for them that get kind of progressively more weird and stuff, and push her comfort. And that's sort of like just a very surface level, basically what we're kind of following. But there's this one scene where she's in her apartment and she's staring at the Hollywood sign, and it's like a foggy morning, and I'm like, I really like this. Like this is a nice little microcosm of what this whole film is about. Is like it's her desperately like looking at this thing that's like way off in the distance. She can't quite reach it, and it's she doesn't know how to get there. It's obscured in haze. Yeah. And then there's another scene when they have like a G6 or some kind of like private jet, like way up in the sky, and she's at this party with her kind of, I'm not gonna say they're deadbeat friends, but they're kind of deadbeat acting
hipstery
friends, like college whatever. Brokey friends, and she's also you see this jet, and you see that she's underneath this jet, and it was another shot that I'm like, it doesn't feel like it's smashing you over the face, but it feels like it's a great little bit of subtext to reinforce what this movie's about. And stuff like that to me is like, that's next level filmmaking. Like that's like you're giving it that little bit of extra thought.
So what's an example on the flip side then? What's something that was an egregious, like that was bad, like that shot that was amateurish?
I would say pacing in certain scenes was, some of it was great and some of it was fucking brutal. There were scenes I'm trying to think, like I think it's after she gets back from her first her second, when she first meets the producer, and she like the guy, because there's like a creepy thing that happens, and then she's like, I'm not gonna audition for this role anymore, I don't care. And then she's with her friends, and there's this massive period in the film that is like such a lull, and it's like, did we need to spend like 20 minutes in this lull phase where she doesn't know if she's gonna or if she's not going to, and like it especially up until that point in the film, it felt like the film was moving at such a steady clip, and we were getting fed important stuff, and like the narrative was pushing forward, and then it just all of a sudden it felt like there was such a nosedive in terms of the momentum of the film. And not to say, like, I think that part of the film needed a little bit of like a lull, but it just felt way too long. Like it needed to be trimmed down in editing, or the script didn't need it didn't need to take that long for her to like come to the realization that she's willing to do whatever it takes to become the star. So yeah, that's an example, and it actually, I think the pacing is a really good example of how it will go in certain scenes. It will feel so professionally done and so tense, and like it has an atmosphere, and like I love what they're going for, and then it'll go to that, and it's like, what happened? And that's why it feels to me like it felt like there was two filmmakers vying for, and one guy really understood pacing and really understood like this is another great example of this. There were certain scenes that the lens choice felt so like random, like you just shot, like there's a scene when it's our lead character has a confrontation with sort of this girl that's been tormenting her in the film to a degree, just like a bitchy catty girl, and they have this their final confrontation in a kitchen. And it was like, this scene is begging for tight shots to see the expressions and to see, like, bring the camera closer to like ramp up the tension a little bit here, so that it's like you're closing me off. And instead they just kept the whole fucking scene at these mediums that just felt so like devoid of tension. I'm like, yeah, this is a great way to begin this scene. But why are we continue? Why do we just? It feels so boring. You're sucking the life out of me here because you're not trying to bring me into this scene.
There's a few things like that I wonder if it's constraints that were the reason for that, or straight up like a failing in terms of just making a bad choice, or some combination of the two, maybe. I definitely agree with that assessment.
Another good example, there's a scene when she first starts, there's a kind of a transformation. The film actually it was weird. It delved into different sort of genre filmmaking. It kind of combined some stuff. Like there was body horror stuff that reminded me of a film like The Fly from Cronenberg, and I was like, I'm really enjoying this. There's even like straight up a scene when she like removes her fingernail, which was like,
fuck,
this
that was
is
gnarly.
So Cronenberg. There's the end of the movie is like straight up a slasher film. It feels like Rob Zombie's Halloween. It's so violent and like unflinching. That stuff was cool. But there's one scene when she starts her sort of transformation into whatever, being not so fucking good looking anymore.
No. Look away, I'm hideous.
And she's like running through the streets of LA. And it's one of those scenes where I could tell like you want this to feel like this neon soaked, like, oh, I'm in the big city and like I'm so confused as to where I am. But once again, the way they shot it was like, you're making LA feel so small. Why are you're shooting this with a wide lens? Why? Get a fucking tight, get like a 85 millimeter lens, shoot it the way you're shooting it, follow her, but like have the world closing off around her and like everything in soft focus. She's confused. Like to me, it seemed like
done a lot of work for sure.
It was like, if you're a professional filmmaker or what, like I'm not gonna fucking, or just somebody who like knows of like some of those tricks to like elicit certain emotional responses. It felt like this is the obvious choice here. Like obviously you would use this type of lens for this type of shot. And then they wouldn't do that. And it just felt, once again, it's like, how are you going from this stuff that feels so professional to stuff that feels so amateur?
Yeah, and even in her performance, like moments of, I think, really good.
Yeah.
And moments of like not good. And I don't know if, performance-wise, I don't know if that was, somewhat intentional given the context of the movie, or if, and like the writing and whatever, or if it's just straight up, like you mentioned, directing, two directors vying for their say. But I think in the context of all the other movies we watched, it would be solidly in the middle for me.
Totally, yeah.
Like, definitely movies in this batch we watched that were much worse than this.
Yeah.
And much less watchable. But this one still didn't hit the nail on the head. It was close, but it didn't hit the nail on the head.
That's what's kind of disappointing is like, I don't think the film was bad. And in fact, like, it's like you said at the beginning, it has that huge leg up from a lot of the other films where it's like it was made for such little money, it was made in such a short amount of time, it was independent filmmakers or whatever. So like, there's so much about it that's like it's just cool to watch that you were able to pull this off with these constraints. But it's just like there were certain scenes where I'm like, you are grazing greatness here. Like this really could have actually been a phenomenal film had certain things been tightened up.
A few things, a handful of things, really.
That had it almost just feels like one of those things that had somebody looked at it and like given it one final pass and been like, let's tighten some of these scenes up. Well, you can't because some of the performance stuff, it's like you got what you got, which kind of sucks. But like even interjecting a few jump scares or like a little bit of more frightful imagery,
just tension. Even it wouldn't even have to be like jump. We don't have to go jump scared, but just like you said, some different lens choices, some more the more feeling of like being encroached upon.
Yeah.
I think could have gone a long way, especially in that like ending scene of where we kind of turn to the slasher flick. More close-ups, more feeling of impending tension and doom, and
because one other thing that I did really enjoy, and I'm trying to think if I would have enjoyed it more if there would have been more, but I actually think the score I'm a fucking huge sucker for Carpenter style like synth scores. Like, love fucking Halloween movies. I love like I always bring up one single movie as like my be all end all horror movie, but I'm not gonna bring it up this time. But it's like Carpenter's The Thing is a great example. Like any of these movies, Stranger Things is a show that highly it borrowed from this aesthetic. But I really enjoy those like dun 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 dun, like just subtle sounds to like really ramp up the tension in the scene. And there were scenes in this film. There's one when she does her initial, I think it's her initial audition, where that felt so like next level or like filmmaker to me. It's like we're just cutting from a like a medium close up, like a head and shoulder shot of her, to this bright flashing light, to like narration, and then this score with dun 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 dun, and it was like this brilliantly tense scene where you're like, oh, they captured the emotion of that scene like perfectly, 100%, nailed it, knocked it out of the park, great job. And it's and then I'm trying to think if I would have enjoyed more score if I liked that they just used it kind of like as a highlight in certain scenes.
Yeah, hard to say.
But that would, to me, that's like an aspect of the film that is just like really good. Is like I enjoy the score a lot. But yeah, like my overall feeling is just like I could have really enjoyed this film. I feel like I almost really enjoyed this film to the point where I would recommend it to others.
Yeah, it's like a 6 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, it's 6.5. Yeah, maybe.
With the context, it would be like a 6.5.
7. Yeah,
6.5, 7.
I would even like. We
6
could be
to 7.
Yeah,
somewhere between that range.
Totally.
Is with the context.
Totally.
Without if it's just like another movie, it's like
like
lower. But
I have no desire to watch this again.
No, I think there's value in watching it for other people though. Like
totally.
I think it's worth a watch. I think it's worth if you're someone who's interested in film and horror films especially, and even more so if you're interested in indie films. Great movie to watch to see what they were able to accomplish given their constraints. And in general, I think the concept is really good, and the commentary that's made about the film industry and fame, I think worthwhile, interesting. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing that's never been done before.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique, completely not ever been done before.
But I think worthwhile and an interesting message in that regard.
God damn it. Yeah, I agree.
Nothing special, but
I respect the hell out of this film conceptually. Like, it is really cool that they wanted to. It seemed like they wanted to mash so many kind of different genres of horror together, and it wasn't just your basic cookie cutter indie horror script. So I'll say that too. Like,
yeah,
I respect that they went for something that I think the concept exceeded their grasp a little bit. Unfortunately, like they shot for the stars or shot for the moon. They don't know if I quite say they landed amongst the stars, but hell, I think that ship almost escaped atmosphere. Like, we almost hit escape velocity. You just didn't quite get there. But I respect the hell out of the attempt, and I think it's the type of thing where you can immediately identify that like there are people who are involved with this project who are hyper talented and need more money to do more things, and like
especially for this is likely a first outing in terms of a serious crack at a film, likely for most people involved, I would imagine.
Totally.
I think a great first effort, showing lots of promise. Even if this team, as a team, was like, I would give them another crack.
Totally.
Simply half the reason why we're being critical as critical as we are is because there's so much promise in this film.
Definitely.
And if there was just that little bit of extra, it would have gone from pretty okay to like good or even great.
It's like seeing a kid who is like an A+ student, and then he hands in like a B+ paper or a B paper, and you're like, you're better than this, buddy. Like, I know, like you half-ass some of this. Like, you just buckle down, put in the extra 20 minutes, and you would have gotten that A+, because I know you're capable of it, and I know you have the potential. It's that kind of thing. It's like you're great. He's a good student. It's like you're a little disappointed because you know
he's a great
what somebody's capable of. Yeah, like you can feel that there's more there.
We all know home ec is a joke. No offense. It's just like everyone takes his class to get an A. It's bullshit, and I'm sorry.
So I wanted to do the wheel. We only have one more episode left. We only have one film left on our list, and I wanted to do the wheel, just be funny and have a single thing.
But
it won't let me spin the wheel with one option. So Andrew, if you would tell the folks at home what our final film in this season or this first volume of the Infernal Archive is. I think it's from 2001.
Pulse from 2001.
I think. 2001.
We're going to be watching, it's a Japanese horror film, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah,
okay, I was going to say, I actually like don't want to fuck up like, because there are these differences between Korean and Japanese and like horror from the Philippines and stuff that is like important. And I don't
totally.
But it's like, yes. Our producer Alex is. Thanks so much to Alex as well for switching on today's episode. Watch Mr. Ross production stuff on YouTube. Go subscribe to that.
We're watching Pulse, and then we'll do a final wrap up episode to end off this season after we finish Pulse.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next episode.